If you didn't dump your tanks on your last trip, make sure you do it now. It's not that it's going to be a totally bad thing if they're not empty, but if they are full and they freeze, that could cause a problem. First, we'll go through a couple of housekeeping items on the inside. I've got my slide out here out so I can check, oh, do I have any bottles of wine in here or anything that could pop when it's frozen. You want to eliminate the chances for that kind of stuff happening. So go through your entire vehicle, trailer, whatever, and get those items out. As far as your refrigerator and freezer go, you want to keep those things unlatched and a little bit ajar. You don't want any moisture building up in there, condensing, causing mold and mildew, something you got to clean up in the springtime. Make sure everything's off. Not that it's going to matter a whole lot because you should be disconnected from everything, but just in case. Make sure your furnace and air conditioning controls are turned off. Again, it's probably not going to matter. You shouldn't have any power going to the coach, but it's not a bad idea just in case. And also in the springtime, you won't have it suddenly start up on you if you accidentally forgot to turn it off. Make sure your burners on your stove and oven are turned off. Shouldn't really matter again because everything should be turned off, but I like to play things double safe. It's a good idea to clean things up, vacuum them. We've got some beetles here that made it in since our last trip, wiping down surfaces just so something that maybe has dripped there that you missed doesn't get real solidified and harder to clean in the spring. Don't forget to take your propane tanks and make sure that they are closed, right? You want to make sure they're both closed. You don't want any kind of issue with the line. Okay, so now we'll start with one of the most important processes, which is draining your water lines, clearing them, and then filling them with RV fluid for antifreeze. First thing I'll do is just drain the main tank. To continue with the process of draining the water out of the lines, I go to my two petcocks here and open them up. Then I'll move to my water heater. I use my wrench with a socket in here. This one is a 15/16. I'll take the plug out. And water will start coming out. Whatever's in there. To really get it to go, take the pressure relief valve and open that up, and the water will come streaming out. It's really important to drain this out because if you sit there with water, it's going to have a lot of stinkiness to it when you use it again. While the valves underneath are open, I will open up all my other faucet, and you'll hear kind of a gassy sound. It's sucking water in the lines down to drain. I'll also do this in the bathroom and the shower. Make sure this guy's open. And I will do it on the outside shower if your rig is equipped, and do the same. I could use these for winterizing to lubricate the rubber seals and lubricate the slide out mechanisms, but I typically do this in the spring. While the water tank is draining, this is a good time to check the air in your tires. Now, I would use my air compressor that I have. These tires want to be at 65 pounds per square inch. If you don't have an air compressor, you're going to want to go to a station that has the ability to do that. But I put my gauge on there, plug it in. Make sure your tires are cold when you do this. And my tires say I'm at 60, so I'm going to put a little more air in them, check each one individually, but I'll put some air in each one. I'm not going to show you how to do that exactly because if you don't have an air compressor, it's kind of wasting your time. Okay, so this next step is going to be to blow compressed air through the water lines so that they are pushing any other water out. I'm using this particular type of connector to screw into there. It's like a bicycle valve almost. Yeah, I have to hold it against this one type of compressor. And then this compressor also uses the charging system of the car. In other words, your cigarette lighter. Okay, you can use other types of compressors, other kinds of fittings. Just really depends what you have. So here I am screwing this guy in here. Put it right on there. Tighten it up. I have to hold this one in place. Put it right on there, turn it on. And this will blow the water out. I will close off the water tank petcock. So that's closed. You don't really have to do it to put the antifreeze in. I just like to make sure that no bugs get in there. Okay, so now in preparation for adding the antifreeze, I close my two lines here. I take my plug and I'll put it in, and I'll only hand tighten it, to tell you the truth, for this. I'll probably get a little antifreeze leaking out, but there's a valve on the inside that's not supposed to let water come into this anyways, so really shouldn't have that problem. My system has, I think, a system where it should have another valve. Complete closure, it seems to cut off one end. Hard to explain. Okay, so now we are going to put the antifreeze fluid into the system. One of the first things we have to do is turn some valves that would normally fill your hot water tank, because we don't want to put 6 gallons in there, right? So I'm going to use my special little tool that came with my camper to take the panels off here. And I'm going to fast forward, you know, there's no need to show you the whole thing. Okay, I'm going to move the camera so you can see the valves. Okay, so here is my hot water tank and the plumbing going to it and from it and the valves. So first thing you'll see is there's a valve down here. Okay, so we got water coming in, going in here, heating up, and then coming out. All right, so first of all, we want to shut that off. We don't want the water to go into the tank. So now it's in the up position. It's off. Now this valve right here is currently set to be closed because we don't want it to flow up this way, right? But now we do when we're going to fill the antifreeze system, because we want it to flow through here, go up into this line. Now, I believe that this system needs to be changed. I think there should be a valve right here, because I know that when the fluid comes in, some of it's going to get back in here. Now that's not a big problem. It's going to be more or less wasted. I guess it's okay to have a little bit of antifreeze in that tank, but I don't think you need to have that flow in there. Okay, so I'm at the back of my rig. This is where my water pump is. Okay, if you're not connected to city water, you're using your water pump, right? But this is what you also use to fill your system. with the antifreeze. Same tool that I use to take off the panel. It's like an Allen wrench almost, but it's a four-sided guy. So I gotta take my screws off and I'll fast forward. Okay, so my water pump's in here. You can't probably see it in the video, but now there's a hose. Here, there's a valve. You might not be able to see it. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to turn that valve so it doesn't take water out of your water tank, but it instead will take out of the end of this hose. Okay, so now it's in the position pointing to this line. So I take my first gallon of the antifreeze and I open it up and I put my hose in it. Okay, so now I'm going to turn my pump on and it is sucking stuff right out of that gallon. It's feeding it into the system. Watch it go down. Okay, it's starting to come out of my faucets. Okay, so I'm in the bathroom, it's coming out of my faucet, I got pink, now I shut it off. Alright, now I've got pink coming out of my shower, and of course it's going into the drain, just like the other faucet will go into the drain, and that's good because now you have, and my kitchen drains. Good to get some of that antifreeze into both P-traps. There's a lot of air in the line still. Make sure it's running free. So I'm going to my second gallon. So now you can see I've got pink antifreeze in the line I want it to, and going that way and that way. You can't really see it maybe here because of the lighting. I really don't care if it's in here. This is what I was saying before about that valve. Got some air in there, so it's just stuff flowing back. These are my external drain lines, as you can see. There's pink in there, and I'll open up the valve just a little bit so I get some into this section. All right, just a little bit, get it into the valve, close them up again. I'm also going to make sure I've got antifreeze going into the auxiliary shower line. So here we go. Here we go. We're flowing some pink out of there. Got the hot open. Shut that off. Turn the cold on. Turn that off. We got pink. There's some air in there too coming out. So now I know I've got pink in my outdoor shower line. Oh, one more note. You want to put your covers back on these compartments just in case there's a way for mice to get in. Last but not least, the batteries. I've got a cover over my batteries to contain gases. I replaced the original one because I have a 2-battery system, and I will go into detail on how that's connected at some point in the future. But for now, we're going to start with taking care of your batteries for winterizing. The first thing I like to do now is take this and turn it off. This really isn't because you're going to be worried about feeding power to the system, obviously. It is because while I'm disconnecting wires, I don't want things to come into contact and accidentally send any kind of intermittent charge to my circuitry inside the camper. I just think this is safer. So one thing to point out, maybe it's just this camper, but even with that turned off, I can see that my pump switch inside the camper is still lit. So it seems to have power regardless of that being turned off. Okay, so here I am disassembling my little system here. Okay, now, so I get to disconnect all my wiring. Okay, so my batteries are out of the camper. What you want to do, I'm using a flathead screwdriver. So take these covers off, however they can come off. Depending on what kind of batteries you have, these are your typical wet cells. So cells that are low are going to have distilled water added to them. I want to give you a peek inside. I'm using a flashlight, don't have enough light here. So you see that little slot, so to speak, right there? Okay, you can see that the fluid is not quite touching that. You can see where the red is very clean and it's dirty above that. Well, that clean area should be covered with fluid. So you don't want to completely cover that slot. That's to let gases escape, but you want to have it up to that slot, and you have to check all of your cells and all of your batteries. So I got my funnel in one of the cells. I'm going to add just a little bit. Then I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to check it. Oh yeah, plenty of water, and I'll repeat this for every cell. Just want to mention that you have to use distilled water because you don't want any kind of minerals or any other contaminants in that water. And what you're doing is, although the battery acid is getting diluted, the process of charging the battery will create the proper charge and change the electrolytes in the battery to what it needs to be, acidic wise. Now we use the trickle chargers, and we keep them in a place where it's not going to freeze, and run this trickle charger all winter long. One more point to make on that too is, even though this is a winterizing video and keeping the fluid in there is a maintenance issue, you still want to check it periodically through the course of your winter. So here's my little spot where I keep my batteries when they're winter charging, and I put a piece of wood in the ground because I don't like them coming in contact with the concrete. And if there's any moisture spilled, you won't have any grunge or contaminants on the bottom of your batteries. Okay, so I've got my trickle chargers connected to my batteries. As you should know, red goes to positive, black goes to negative, right? And then I've got my 2 units over here, and I'm going to turn them on now. I should see some nice lighting as appropriate. So you can see this one here is blinking and it's charging, and this one is a little bit different signaling, but the same thing, we're charging. Another thing I like to do is make sure everything at your control panel is shut off. Again, since there's no power coming to it in the wintertime in most cases, you should be okay. But just in case, shut everything off. So last but not least would be to put a cover over your rig. And if you've got snow and freezing rain, you want to cover your rig. It's a 2-person job, so I'm not going to do it. I don't have anybody here right now. But these seals up here, especially at the top, any place locks, whatever that water can get into, that can damage the seals and things like that pretty easily. So a cover is a really good idea. Now, wind could do some wear damage on certain surfaces, so you'd want to protect them maybe with some foam or something like that. It can be complicated depending on your situation and what kind of cover you have. Get a good quality cover. You will also want to cover your tires. Most covers come with tire covers. You might have to buy another set if they are made for a single axle, double axle. And you want to protect them from UV radiation and wearing out the rubber and all that. I wouldn't put them on until it got cold enough so that mice don't find that to be a nice home. So wait until it gets a little colder before you put those on. So one area that can cause some damage on your cover, I've got these little rain gutter spouts that shoot the water away from running down the side of the camper. And you can see that a cover on that would be something that could easily tear the camper cover.